Morning, everybody. So this morning I'm wearing brown, and the reason I'm wearing brown is because I'm going to be talking about floating, and more specifically about how organizations are wasting huge amounts of time and money trying to stave off the great resignation with pay rises alone. I want to talk about why that I don't think is going to work. But before we do that, let's talk about the colors very briefly. So we've got the three green behaviors: thinking, communicating, and improving. Those are the things that, if you have them in your diary in the right proportion, will take you, your people, and your organization upwards, make things better, because they're the essence of leading, and that's what leaders do. Then there's the two amber behaviors: monitoring and directing. Now, those are the things that maintain balance, stop things from going backwards, manage risk, because that's what supervising is all about. Then there's red, doing, and there's brown, floating, just one of those each. And those are the things, if you have them in your diary in the wrong proportion, will take you, your people, and your organization backwards, because it takes your time away from the green and the amber stuff. Too many of us fall into the trap of doing that stuff. But then there's another one, and the other one is blue, and blue is for living, and living is about looking after your physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being. That's where you get recharge, so that you can get the most out of yourself when you do go to work. So we've heard about this thing called the Great Resignation. Okay, people have decided that they've had enough for whatever reason, mostly I think driven by the pandemic. And now we're struggling to keep people in organizations. And the first thing that we've decided that is going to fix that problem is more money. Let's give them more money, throw more money at them. And that might have an effect for a short term, but it simply won't work in the long term. And here's why I think that's true. I've always thought it was true, but I decided that we should run a survey to find out what's really behind this. And this is what our survey said. We surveyed 100 people who work for organizations in the UK. And this is what they said. Half of them said that they would choose to take a new boss over a pay rise. Number one. Two, 1/3 of employees reported that their boss is the most stressful part of their job. Okay. 67%, 2/3 of employees leave their job because of their manager. See where this is going? Nearly 1/5 of employees trust a stranger more than their manager. And lastly, only 10% of people believe that their manager is a manager because they love people. Now, I don't know about you, but having heard those stats, I think the real answer to the Great Resignation is hiding in plain sight. And I think it's about managers. Okay, we seem to be resorting to this idea that we've got to pay people more money, but actually we need to just give our people better managers to work for. We keep talking about culture in organizations and how we can improve culture. And I like to use words. I think words are really, really powerful. And the problem when we say that is when we say, well, okay, great, it's culture, but how do we change the culture? I think it helps to think about where culture really comes from. Okay, and there was a great podcast. It was a Diary of a CEO podcast, Stephen Bartlett's podcast. And on it, I can't remember if it was Simon Sinek or Marcus Buckingham. But what he was basically saying, it was Marcus Buckingham. And what he basically said is that no company has one culture. Companies have a number of different cultures. You could take people from different teams within Google and they would all perceive a different culture. Why? Because the culture is created by the manager. Okay, it's what the manager portrays to their people, it's how they treat their people, it's how they support, or more importantly, don't support their people. Okay, so if we think that culture is about managers, why don't we just change the word? So instead of saying, well, how do we change our culture? What we really need to be saying is, well, how do we change our management? Okay, and that's the key. How do we change our management? And that's, I think, something that we need to have a wider conversation around. And it's certainly something that I'm very passionate about. And that's a whole part of what the Time to Lead program is all about. It's about creating managers who love people. So just wanted to throw that out there. Be interesting to get your thoughts. Every month I run a taster. The next one's coming up at the end of this month. It's about the 28th of this month. I've got an event on LinkedIn sent out. I'll put a link to it below. If you're curious about how you can create a better culture in your organization, read that as how you can create better managers in your company, then come along to the event. It's an hour, it's highly interactive, it's with senior executives, and it'll give you a bit of an insight as to how you could make the difference. That's it for now. Really interesting, as I said, to get your comments below. In the meantime, have a great day. Have a great week.